Hi everybody, it's Audrey. Welcome to day 4 of my 'Tis the Season holiday scrapping series. So for today's page, I am going to use some papers from my stash, and I have used a cut file from the Silhouette store for some envelopes, so that you can just search for envelope cut files. And I sized these envelopes to be kind of big, and I have photos of my kiddos mailing their letters to Santa. So that is why I decided to use some envelopes, and I'm going to stick the photos in my envelopes. I kind of did something very similar a couple years ago in one of my 'Tis the Season scrapping videos, where I used a whole bunch of little envelopes that I cut from my die cutting machine, and I filled them with different things, and I loved that design. So kind of similar, but I'm going to use much bigger envelopes. And when I cut this file, I didn't show you my process for cutting these because they're kind of simple files, but I wanted to make sure that the size of the envelope was big enough to fit my photos. So I wanted to add a little definition to the edge of the envelopes, and I went through with my ink and just inked the edges to kind of make the edges stand out a little bit. Again, these are papers from my stash. I tried to pick papers for my envelopes that had a really strong contrasting pattern on both sides, because I knew you were going to see both the outside and the inside patterns of the envelope. So I picked 2 pattern papers that kind of had a lighter tone on the outside and then a bluish tone on the inside. So I am going to do some mixed media on my background here. But I picked this pattern paper, by the way. As you can see, it is kind of like a lined paper, like a letter. And on the bottom, I think it says something. I tried to scrape it off there. It said something about, deliver to Santa. So I thought that was cute for this page. So to add even more definition to my envelopes, I decided to go back through and I added some machine stitching around the edges of my envelopes while my gesso was drying on my background paper. So like I said, I picked this paper because it reminded me of writing a letter, because it had lined papers. The red border was kind of bothering me. So my thought was to cut off the red border and then kind of distress the edges of this piece of paper to make it look like it was like a roughed up letter. And so I'm going to distress it with my edge distressor, and then again I'm going to go through. I haven't done inking on my edges in like a really long time, and then the last 2 pages I've decided to go back through and do that. So it's kind of funny that that technique is, I've been using it more. And then I'm gonna put this right on a piece of cardstock. This cardstock is an off-white cardstock. It's my favorite off-white color. It's called Cream Puff, and it's by Basil. And for me, it's the perfect off-white color because it's not that super, super bright white. And as you can see, it kind of matches this pattern paper here pretty well. So I used these Lindy's Stamp Gang powders on I think my last page or the page before, and this is kind of a gold. And for the background, because the papers I had were kind of bluish and kind of like an off-white, I'm gonna add some gold and green in the background. My photos also have a lot of red in them, so I definitely wanted to do something in the back that was a little bit contrasting to the red and the blue. So I'm going to do kind of a gold and green mix here. And I was not sure about these powders to start, but I really love this color. This gold is really, really pretty. And then I'm going in with some Distress Oxide inks. I think it's called Maude Blonde, maybe? Something about a lawn. This green was a little too bright for me. It's more of a mossy green. I wanted more of a pine green. So I'm actually going to add in some of these blue powders. The powder is it's actually called a jade, I think, and it gives a much darker green. So I like the darker green, but the little bit of kind of lighter green adds a nice touch too. And I'm not doing too much in the middle here because I know that my envelopes are going to cover up a big section of that area, so I'm not even bothering putting mixed media in the middle there. I'm just going to go through and really do the edges. And I did some splatters with some different colors, and then I go back through with some blue splatters here. I think this color is called Frostbite, and that is a Shimmers. And then I thought maybe I wanted to add a little blue in the background, but it kind of just mixed with the green and looked kind of green. So I was trying to give you a little shot there. That gold powder really adds like a nice sheen to the background, so it's really pretty. So this collection I am using is an Echo Park, or maybe, no, Cartabella collection. It is not something I would normally choose. As you can see, it's very vintage looking. The colors, the icons, the pictures, very vintage. I would not pick this for myself normally. I got it as a design team, I think from when I was on the ThermoWeb design team, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I really kind of surprised myself that I used as much as I did. So I challenged myself to use it, and I really actually love the way that this came out. I'm also combining in some, this is an old October Afternoon collection called Silent Night, and they both had kind of a vintage feel to it, so I thought they went well together. So I'm just looking for some other little embellishments and things to add. I wanted some more holly sticking out of the back of my envelopes, so I fussy cut some holly from that piece of pattern paper you just saw. And then as I was going through my stash, I thought I would put something a little bit more texture under those bells, so I found these tassels that they're kind of big, and I probably wouldn't use them normally as an embellishment, so I kind of cover a lot of it up, but I think it does add a nice little depth and dimension to the bells. And then just a few stickers from the sheet. You know, I don't really add too much here. The candy cane, I wanted a candy cane, or a couple candy canes, but that one I picked was too big. The sticker was too big for the space. And I'm just kind of finding some stickers that go with my theme. The funny thing about this layout is that I usually work around my photos, and you know, I start with my photos and plan everything around that. I'm not even really going to my photos on this page. I know what where they're going to go, but I'm kind of just working on all the embellishments and the trims before I add the photos in. So I'm going to do a little layer of twine across the top here, and just that little wreath just adds just a little more greenery. I initially, so I sketch these, most of the time I sketch these designs out in my notebook before I actually start them, and they change from my sketches. And I initially had this cluster here at the top over to the left, but I liked how it looked better here in the middle of the envelopes. So I'm going to add some pop dots to the bottom of those bells because that tassel adds some height there. And this is so stupid, but I'm trying to press those bells down and they're not adhering to the background. I thought maybe it was the mixed media. I'm like, why are these not sticking? And I never took the paper backing off of the foam dots, so they're not going to stick if the sticky's not exposed. So I figured that out here in a little while, that I never took the paper off. But okay, so I'm going to go back and start gluing these down. And I've given them a good press down because they're kind of, this paper is thick. If you're familiar with Cartabella paper, it kind of is, it's pretty thick and it has like a really nice, neat texture to it. But having it be folded here, plus I have a background pattern paper on top of cardstock, this layout's getting kind of heavy and thick. So I've really got to press those envelopes down to glue them down. And then I'm just adding some 3D dots to the other little bits. Here's where I realized I never took the paper backing off my bells. That's better. I pause a lot here in between my recordings to search through my stash for things to add on. So that's why it seems like I have everything so handy, but honestly, off camera, I've really spent like, probably 15 or 20 minutes in between takes looking for the perfect thing. So these processes actually take me a lot longer than what it seems like in the video. I am putting on these really teeny tiny like sparkly gems. I think they're called Blitzy, but I don't know what they're called. They're from close to my heart. But they just kind of jazz up those bells a little bit. And I'm going to throw on a couple enamel dots. And now I'm finally going to start to put my photos on, and instead of backing them with a piece of pattern paper, because I have a lot of patterns and embellishments going on already, I just decided to kind of make them a little bit more sturdy with a white pattern paper and add a little bit more of a border. So I'm just going to back them with white. And then I finally found, I was looking for more candy cane embellishments that were the right size. I had a whole bunch of tiny candy cane stickers, but they just weren't big enough. And this piece of pattern paper had some candy cane shapes on it, so I'm going to cut those out and kind of stick them around. Okay, but here's what drives me crazy about these candy canes. They're all curving to the right, which I wanted some to curve to the left and some to curve to the right so that they could face different directions, but of course they're all curving in the same direction, which I know something little like that shouldn't bother me, but those kind of things do. And so my candy canes are facing the same direction and I wanted them to look different, but oh well, it is what it is. I'm going to put some craft foam in the back of each photo here, and then I'm just finishing up with these candy canes, and I was thinking about a title, where to put a title, but in my photos, on the mailbox, it says Letters to Santa right in the photo, and I kind of was going to title my page that, and I thought to myself, I don't really need to add another title that says Letters to Santa because it's kind of in the photos, so I'm just going to leave it and not really put another title on, and the title is in the photos, I guess. I do go back and add some journaling on the bottom, and there is the final page. So I really like how this came out. I love the lined paper in the background. I really think it has the mailing the Christmas letter feel to it. And, you know, what I did to the envelopes there to kind of jazz them up. And I'm, again, a collection I wouldn't normally use. And I really, really love how this came out. The vintage, kind of the vintage look is kind of fun to use for a change. So thank you so much for stopping by for day 4. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you tomorrow for day 5. Stay scrappy, friends.